Hello and welcome to Is This England, a show where we talk about old England games and ask just how England was this.
Today, we're looking at England v Scotland's dramatic classic from 1967 as the old enemy come to Wembley to face the world champions. The world champions are England at this point in time. Take me back.
1966 they won it, 1967 and Scotland come and they want to upset stuff, don't they?
Well, I don't fancy their chances much at all. How you doing, Nick?
Yeah, I'm good, mate. Yourself?
Yeah, let's get into this. This is a classic. This is an old school. This is a different era. This is a different world of football. 1967, of course, as we just mentioned there, England are reigning world champions for this game at Wembley, welcoming our friends from the north. Any knowledge of football in this period without the obvious exception of England's World Cup win?
Slight things about the European Cup. So two British sides won the European Cup for the first time in this period, with Celtic followed by Manchester United. That's kind of my, off the top of the head, the only thing. It's the first time I've actually watched an England game in full from this era, because they're clearly just not shown as much, are they? Again, apart from the obvious.
Yeah, I zero knowledge. Obviously, we did a bit of reading around this era, which I did find quite interesting. We'll get to that shortly. But yeah, just the big looming shadow of England lifting the Jules Rimet Trophy at Wembley. Not 12 months before, or maybe,
May have even been a bit less.
This was April, so yeah, you'd think a bit less than 12 months before. Before we get into the football, time capsule time. Nick, what are you putting into our Is This England time capsule from 1967?
So I'm putting in the first colour television.
Wow.
So the first scheduled colour television broadcast began on BBC Two, going nationwide in December. The first thing that was able to be viewed by everybody in colour if you were in the area was Wimbledon Championships.
Oh.
So, colour TV, that's pretty...
Being used to its max there with a lot of green and white.
Yeah, very much so. But I think that's a pretty, as culturally goes, that's pretty big, I think.
Was it HD?
No HD, I'm afraid.
Was it 4K?
Not HD ready, not 4K, none of that stuff.
What's the point? I'll put Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band in there.
Nice.
Again, things are changing. Things are becoming more colourful.
Yeah, yeah.
It's an iconic album, obviously, for all the right reasons, and one that really stands the test of time.
It doesn't feel like knowing that album, like you say, with all the colour, and we watch this game in black and white because I don't think it's been restored anywhere with colour on it. Just seems really strange that this is the same year as that. This seems like 40 years in the past,
Yeah.
doesn't it, when you watch this?
Well, it does, yeah. The crowd are all suited and booted and bowler hatted. You got nobody there in the little John Lennon glasses or the Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band coats. But yeah, I guess it's a time of massive cultural change, and one that we hear a lot about and have heard a lot about probably during our lifetimes, but obviously it's getting further and further away, I guess. Are we... Is it like now we're as far away from the 90s as the 90s was from the 60s? So when we talk about Oasis and Blur, it's like talking about the Rolling Stones and the Beatles.
Yeah,
But,
it's terrifying that, isn't it? Just kind of how things slip away. And you always get as well when, that was 10 years ago. When you think about it, it's actually 20 years ago or 30 years ago. And it's...
Yeah, I've been having a lot of that recently. Bloody 2022, man. 22 years since the millennium. Oh, who remembers the past? Anything else just from this era? Do you remember much about 1967?
Just on a little bit of reading, which is slightly relevant to the game, actually. So You Only Live Twice, the Bond film, came out this year and had Sean Connery and Yul Brynner in the lead roles. The England team of 66 actually visited the set and had a beer with the cast during the World Cup to calm themselves down after they drew their opening game.
Isn't Sean Connery famously Scottish as well?
Famously Scottish, and will always do that voice no matter what.
Yeah, but he kind of calmed them down so they'd win the World Cup. But do you think he made a little, don't don't take this advice with you when you play Scotland. You cower in the face of the Scots.
In 67.
Yeah, we'll see who the real men are.
Yeah. You guys go and win that, and then we can come and have our stab at it as well. But yeah, it's interesting. It was on a little documentary I watched prior to the game, and yeah, you can see them on set, and they're all just talking and mingling with the cast, and they just look so like uptight and whatever. But you've got these kind of film people who are kind of ahead of the curve and dressed differently and a bit more relaxed the way that, and used to appearing in front of camera as well, obviously. So when they're being recorded, all the England players are very stiff and don't really know what to do if they're not being recorded on the pitch. Then.
I'm just trying to think what the modern day equivalent would be. You'd have Harry Kane going for a little cheeky IPA with I don't even know what the film's like, with Benedict Cumberbatch
on the set of Doctor Strange 2. He's just off there, just getting his headspace back in, isn't he?
Yeah, it's a different world. So yeah, big Sean Connery is laying down the law for Scottish football, because I guess at this time, surprisingly enough to me, Scotland were like the kings, and I'm not talking about the national team, but their teams like Celtic, Rangers, and all of those, their club sides were killing it in Europe, right?
Yeah, they were. It's again a really brilliant time for British football. So Celtic won the first and only British quintuplet. Get that right, 5 trophies.
Well said.
Yep. Barcelona and Inter in the modern day are the only other sides to have achieved this. So that includes the Scottish Division 1 title with just 2 defeats.
That's good going.
Yeah.
That's Man City level.
The League Cup, the Scottish FA Cup, the Glasgow Cup, and the European Cup, again being the first British team to win this.
The Glasgow Cup.
I know, what is that? I mean, not to be disparaging to the Glasgow Cup and all those who have held it, it doesn't ring a bell to me, that one.
Yeah, well, the Celtic weren't the only big dogs killing it, as they did so well winning the European Cup, as you say. Dundee United entered European competition for the first time in their history. In the Fairs Cup, which is what we would now know as the UEFA Cup or the Europa League, I guess, in modern terms, they beat Barcelona 2-1 at the Nou Camp in their first game in the Fairs Cup. Good going, Dundee. And they beat them 2-0 at Tannadice Park. I hope I've pronounced that right. I probably haven't. So that's a 4-1 aggregate victory against Barcelona for Dundee. They got knocked out by Juventus. I mean, it's a tough draw, and they did well.
That's a 1-2. That's difficult, isn't it? But imagine being like a Dundee fan of like, well, again, you get to like a cup competition. It was like Fulham in like 2010. They got to play like Juventus at their ground, and it's just like, well, you've got to beat these teams if you want to win it. And I'm guessing those fans that were there were like, well, we're playing the best around, really.
Well, you know what? There was another Scottish team who went even further than them in the Fairs Cup. Kilmarnock, who got to the semi-finals before losing to Leeds. Leeds 4-2. I mean, it's different times, but yeah. Would you rather lose to Leeds 4-2 in a semi or lose to Juventus in a second round after beating Barcelona?
You've got to have had a better trip on the way there. As a lot of people say, it's the journey, not the destination. When you see these teams, a lot of people's favourite teams that actually don't ever win stuff. You look, I don't know, like the Denmark team of the 80s and a lot of like club sides of the like 2000s. They rarely actually win stuff. It's more like the journey and the players that they accumulate on the way, that you go, God, he played for them, and he was brilliant there. So
nights that you'll like, there's probably Kilmarnock fans now whose dads and granddads just talk to them about those games,
and it'll all be in their museums and all this kind of thing as well, won't it?
Doesn't necessarily have to end with a trophy.
No,
just a good experience. But Rangers did. Sorry, they didn't win a trophy. They got to a final.
One better than the semi. There you go.
Yeah, the Cup Winners' Cup, losing 1-0 to Bayern Munich. So really, that is Scottish dominance across Europe, like the likes of which we've never seen again.
Well, so many Scottish teams in European competitions. That's 4 Scottish teams across. Is that 3 competitions then? That's 2 that are in the same, and then you've got 3 competitions in total then.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, there's just so much Scottish dominance, it's hard to keep track, really.
Well, when you've got the Glasgow Cup knocking around as well, I mean, it's just an open season, isn't it?
They must have a strong international team. I guess we'll get to see them in action. Yeah. Back home, what was happening back home?
Back home, Manchester United won the league, their second league title in 3 seasons, but would be their last for 26 years until Alex Ferguson came along.
Scottish dominance
again, yeah, and at least one player from Manchester United was Scottish, Dennis Law as well, having a quite ridiculous season and a brilliant period, winning the Ballon d'Or around this time as well. So when you look at these Scottish teams, well, the Scottish team and England team we're going to talk about, there really are two of the probably the best sides around in Europe, you'd say, at least.
Which is great. Why can't we have those times back again?
Well, exactly. Yeah, I mean, you look at things like the current Scotland team. They've done so well to kind of get to the Euros where they have, and in a good place hopefully to reach more tournaments in the future. But it's not to that level where you've got a world champion and a team capable of going toe to toe with a world champion side, both both on one island. Hopefully,
Brexit will bring these times back.
Yeah, definitely.
I think that was one of the main pushes, one of the main reasons for it. So the build up to this game then. So we're building up to England versus Scotland at Wembley, April the 15th, 1967, and as we've mentioned, the biggest bit of build up you can possibly reference is England won the effing World Cup. England won the effing World Cup.
Something we definitely will not be able to say pretty much in any other build-up. So I think we just get it out now and really enjoy it.
Yes. What sort of shadow has this cast for you? Because it is a different era, as we say, but it's always been referenced, right?
I think it's always been referenced. And if England hadn't have won the World Cup in '66, then does English football look a lot different? Really? Does it not get held up to the standards that you'd say, well, actually they should be a powerhouse because they've won the World Cup before, but Uruguay have won more World Cups than England.
Yeah, it's also like a beacon that we even if it's in the distant history, in the distant past, we can always go, well, we've done it once, so maybe we can do it again. But it's just seemed like an albatross as well.
Yeah, definitely.
And just the shadow of that, and it just being so far away, it's quite embarrassing as well, isn't it, to keep going, we can do it, and we have done it, and it's like, yeah, but a very long time ago.
It's kind of what you said, isn't it? Like X amount of years since this happened is the same as this. I mean, are we actually getting into the period now where Three Lions is longer away from where we are now compared to when the World Cup was won?
The 30 years of hurt. Yeah, I think we're approaching 60.
I think we've said before, is this maths, but I think it's pretty like close, isn't it now? They've got to be getting near 50s and 60s, I'd say.
Yeah. We'll potentially revisit some of that World Cup run in the future. Any sort of moments in your mind that you look back and you think, God, that was such a turning point in that tournament for England. Obviously, you've got the goal in the final. Have you watched the final back much?
I don't think I've ever watched it in its entirety. I think everyone's seen like the key incidents, haven't they? And England were leading 2-1 going into the last minute, and Germany just kind of pulled one back. And obviously, the biggest moment in English football history really was whether it was over the line or not. I think from people have gone back, all the nerds have looked at the technology and seen actually it probably wasn't over the line, but it's one of those things where I watched something actually in the build up to this, and it was like Jeff Hurst going, well, I could see it was clearly over the line. I was like, well, you would say that, wouldn't you? And there's just no way of knowing at that point, and you just go, well, it's kind of like pre-VAR, don't know, and just get on with it.
Yeah, definitely, and it definitely crossed the line. I'm just saying that because I'm glad we won the World Cup anyway. I haven't really watched it back myself, so I look forward to doing it as part of the pod. England's manager at this time, big Sir Alf
Ramsey. He was appointed in 1962, seen as the first England manager, where previous panels and selectors had been there for the national team. This was the way football was going, as Scotland did the same with Bobby Brown, who was the Scotland manager here as well.
Right, so it's similar to cricket, really. Well, it was similar to cricket before Alf
took over. Yeah, so you'd have, like, in cricket, you've got like a board, head coach, board and head of selectors, and the captain, who all have an influence on who plays in cricket. But this was kind of seen as Alf Ramsey wanted to do everything himself, have the responsibility of picking the entire team and it being on him and changing it in his own way.
And obviously it led to a period of sort of experimentation with different systems. And I think at that point, any sort of level of tactical innovation is such a big advantage.
Yeah.
Because those around you are just still, like, we'll get onto the game obviously, but when watching it, it's just always get the ball and run forward, or just kick it forward. And just play wherever you can as long as you're getting stuck in. So there was like a experimentation with a 4-3-3 just prior to the World Cup.
Yeah, so in 65, Ramsey had tested a 4-3-3 system against Spain. kind of seen as, these days it'd be like playing a false nine 20 years ago or something.
Yeah,
People just didn't know what it was, and they were called the wingless wonders. So the idea was that opposition fullbacks wouldn't have anybody to pick up because it was all happening actually in the middle of the pitch.
Interesting.
And all the players from around that time just kind of think of it as just this thing of like, God, we'd never thought of that before. And I think Bobby Charlton kind of mentions it in the film I watched. He was just like, yeah, they didn't know what to do with us, and we just went forward. So even like a tweak like that from what would just be seen as like
revolutionary, really.
Well, kind of like the first formations of kind of like the WM, and then just going to a 4-4-2 and kind of very simple systems. You play there, we'll get it sorted in the end. And then doing these kind of little tweaks, as you say, makes a big difference.
Yeah, I think the reason why we both kind of pinpointed this as a game we wanted to cover is because what's interesting to me is the aftermath of winning the World Cup. I think I was more interested to cover this than to say go and watch the final, because it's what do you do after such great success? After the Lord Mayor's show, as the saying goes. So it was, and then looking at England's post World Cup win results, and seeing a 3-2 win for Scotland at Wembley was very much just like, that has to be covered. Turns out to be a great game. Some more sort of post-World Cup results of note. A 2-0 win over Ireland, a 0-0 against the Czech Republic. So it's Czechoslovakia. I'm not sure which the politically correct term for that time.
I think it was Czechoslovakia at the time, I think, yeah.
Yeah, and a 5-1 win v Wales. So kind of a mixed bag, really.
Yeah, I mean, obviously... It's still, I think the Northern Ireland and the Wales games are both part of qualifiers for the home nations for the Euros. Because I think at the time, I'm not entirely sure, but I think at the time, you played teams from around you to go on to the Euros, which would be 68 in this period. And it was only made up of 4 teams anyway at that point. So you get there and it's just like, right, we'll play these games and we'll see what happens. But you were pitted against... Again, Northern Ireland, Wales, Scotland. So whoever won that would end up going to the Euros from around you. And I'm assuming it happened to similar countries in similar areas to each other.
Yeah, well, I did say a mixed bag, but going into the game, England 19 games unbeaten, and a return for Jimmy Greaves, who had famously, had to drop out the side and be replaced by some loser called Jeff Hurst, who's apparently the Emil Heskey of his day. I don't know.
Well, we'll see in this game, won't we, how he plays. Let's judge him on that.
Yeah, you got to feel sorry for Jimmy Greaves when you look back, and his record's so fantastic. And who knows? I mean, he could have won the World Cup final for England as well. Maybe not with a dramatic hat trick, but it must have played on his mind for so many years. And I guess it takes a certain character to be able to just sort of let it slide.
And what you see, again, Sir Jeff Hurst, one of the kind of great English players, but you look at Jimmy Greaves and his record everywhere he went, it was, it's kind of in comparison to what you'd see of like a modern day of Messi, Ronaldo, Lewandowski, Muller of the 70s as well. It was phenomenal.
Yeah. Scotland, Bobby Brown as manager, the most Scottish name I could think of. We'll maybe hear a few more that are at that level of Scottishness, but This was his first game as manager of Scotland.
Yeah. So his first game, quite an unspectacular spell he had at St Johnstone to appoint him. A few promotions, few relegations, but this saw him take the Scotland job in kind of like a period where Scottish management was fantastic. So you had Jock Stein, who'd been the manager of Celtic, and again would around this period win the European Cup. You'd also have Matt Busby at Manchester United and Bill Shankly at Liverpool. So there's a lot of good Scottish managers, but all 3 of them kind of haven't reached their peak yet. So Manchester United are yet to win the European Cup. Shankly is yet to get Liverpool going, and Jock Stein is just about to, strangely, after this game, win the European Cup too.
It seems like such a fascinating time, and I hope there's a Is This Scotland podcast out there who can do some digging into this era, because we'll probably leave it at this game. But just a stellar list of names, incredible results, and as you say, not even at the peak yet.
Exactly, yeah. It was funny, Bobby Brown actually later talked about being annoyed by the English press saying he'd read that England would humiliate and relegate Scotland, so not much has changed.
Bit of needle.
Yeah, very much so.
Just a note really, this game took place a month before Celtic would go on to win the European Cup, so Bobby's picking 4 of their starting 11 in this game, so it's that you still see it replicated to this day, don't you, really? I remember going into the 2018 World Cup, and I think Liverpool were doing really well, and it was like, why don't we just pick all the Liverpool players that we have, because they're just winning everything, and they're going to already know how to play together.
It was always an argument as well of kind of the Arsenal back four, back five, however you want to call it, from like the 80s and 90s, where you say, well, why don't you just pick the best back four in England and just they already know what they're doing under George Graham, so let them carry on. And I guess you get spells where certain teams dominate the England side, so you'd say, well, why not pick all them together too?
Yeah, Scotland, their 2 previous games coming into this was a 1-1 draw with Wales and a 2-1 victory over Northern Ireland. So not bad at all, considering they're plucky underdogs and they're going to get, humiliated and relegated by England.
I don't know how you can get relegated from a European Championship draw. This isn't the Nations League.
Yeah. So before we get into it, I want to ask you a question, Nick. Do you love an England v Scotland or an England v Home Nations match? Does it have an extra feel to you that other internationals don't, and would you like to see more of them?
I think it's really, really interesting. Kind of the most recent one we watched together in the Euros. Just thought it was a great occasion because you saw so many Scottish people coming to Wembley for the game, and like many wouldn't have tickets as well. So it's just seen as, again, the Tartan army arriving to Wembley, and it's, whenever it's happened, really, it's never disappointed. Yeah,
I love it. I wished it was kind of like a calendared fixture.
It'd be good if you could have like a home nations league in those kind of little summers where nothing's happening, where you don't have a World Cup or a Euros, and maybe, again, I guess the Nations League's kind of put pay to that, but it would be good if something's happening, you go, you know what, let's have like a round robin tournament where you have, a couple of teams playing each other and you just see what happens.
Or you could really like stretch it out over quite a long time and just have like, maybe even 3 games a year, but just keep it like it could last over the course of 2 years or something. But I don't know. I'd just like to see it in the calendar, and I don't think it will happen because.
But again, like at time of recording, we know that England are going to play Switzerland soon. I mean, just wouldn't that be better if England were playing Scotland, Northern Ireland, Wales? It's just there's something different about it, isn't there? And something a lot better.
It would be better for us as viewers and fans, but maybe not for the team to keep facing. Like Scotland, Ireland and Wales and what have you.
Yeah.
I guess you need to vary your opposition. But when it comes around, it's special. The Euros game was terrible, but it was just great. I think there was so much expectation because of Euro 96 and all of that. You wanted Phil Foden to chip it over somebody's head and then volley it in like Gaza.
Yeah.
But no goals in that game. So let's look at the lineups then. Do you want to take England or do you want to take Scotland?
As the person who usually does the harder pronunciations, I'll do Scotland if you want.
Oh, legend.
Go on.
Thank you. Gordon Banks in goal, a defence of Jack Charlton, George Cohen, Bobby Moore, captain, and Ray Wilson. Midfield, Alan Ball, Martin Peters, Nobby Stiles, Bobby Charlton, midfielder / forward. Up front, Jimmy Greaves and Jeff Hurst.
And then you've got the Scotland team. Starting lineup would be Ronnie Simpson, Tommy Gemmell, John Greig, Ron McKinnon, Eddie McGreedle, Jim Baxter, Billy Bremner, Jim McKelliog, Dennis Law, Bobby Lennox, and Willie Wallace.
Great names. What's your favourite just name at face value in that Scotland team?
I'd maybe say Bobby Lennox. There's just something about that. Oh no, actually Willie Wallace. There's just something really lovely about that, isn't
Willie
it?
Wallace is great. I like John Greig as well, and Jim McKelliog.
McKelliog, yeah. His name gets mentioned. Whoever the commentator is just says it so beautifully in this video. McKelliog.
So Scotland appear to be replicating England's 4-3-3, which is referenced as the World Cup lineup by the commentator.
Yeah, Scotland playing 4-3-3. The commentator notes first time England v Scotland was in 1872, and they played 2-2-6, so slightly different formation.
That is experimental AF. That's very attacking, isn't it? 2-2-6.
Yeah.
The Scottish goalkeeper, Ronnie Simpson, making his debut, age 36 for Scotland.
Yeah, plays very well, actually. And you wouldn't think it's his first game either. I think maybe the manager had managed him previously, so this is why he's giving him a go from some notes in that too.
Well, oh God, you'd be loving it, wouldn't you, making your debut? I mean, there's still hope for us, Nick.
Yeah, it's not quite 36 yet as a time of recording, but it's quite interesting because they say, this is the World Cup lineup for England, but it's not because Roger Hunt's not playing in it for England either. So there is a change in bringing Jimmy Greaves back. There is Roger Hunt who drops out.
Ah, okay. We don't see a national anthem before kickoff, so we can't judge it like we usually would.
No. It's strange that it just goes from, like, they come out, it's nothing, and it's just bang, you're into the game, really.
It's kind of cool. I like it. Straight into the action. So we're going to kick off, speaking of straight into the action.
And there's a great portion of this vast crowd here. 100,000 of them, about 40,000 of them Scotsmen. They've come here by plane, by train, by road. Tremendous number of flags of Scotland here this afternoon. There's probably going to be as much noise for Scotland as there is for England. And now they're getting ready for the kickoff.
First thing of note, really, 40,000 Scots inside Wembley, every single one of them, and every single England fan in matching suits by the looks of it. Everyone looks exactly the same, but there is a massive roar when kickoff happens. And whenever Scotland are in possession, it's deafening. It's like a home game.
Yeah, it's brilliant. The sound around the game is fantastic, and you hear the Scotland crowd as the game goes on. And I think the commentator gets confused a couple of times with what they're actually singing, but we'll get to that at various points, won't we?
Yeah. My first observation was very early, but within the first minute, I thought this is a bit more cultured than I thought. I was expecting serious hoofball, and I think they kind of do fade as the game goes on. But can it be sustained? Can it be sustained? Well, how long can it be sustained?
Yeah, that's the bigger question, isn't it?
Yeah, there's a couple of defensive headers early on, which is I watch and I go, ooh, when you think about what we know about the ball at the time, they're just tough blokes.
I know, yeah. You do forget it after a while. It's kind of like becomes a bit cartoony after a while with some of it. But there's a couple of really rough headers when you first realise it. Greig goes straight through the back of Jeff Hurst at the start as well. I don't think it's like an especially dirty game from when you see it. Like today, you'd see a lot of players on the floor and rolling around and all that. And it's hard. It's almost kind of funny when you watch it. It just doesn't feel, because you can't really hear any sound of what's going on the pitch. You don't hear like the tackle flying in or anything. It's quite cartoonish, I think.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the players today would just not last. And yeah, I don't know if it is dirt and like intent, or whether it's just lack of skill, or just they're just playing within the rules of the game. I guess there's a few bad tackles made. I think. But
I don't think like it ever feels like someone's going out to hurt someone. I'm sure that happens like at various points throughout these kind of games in this era, but it never felt like dirty. It just felt like I'm trying for that ball now, and I'm just going to go through you if I have to. So that's in the rules.
No complaints either. Nobody ever goes, "Oh, what you doing?" or like crying and having a go at the referee. They're just like, "Right, somebody's gone through the back of me here. Yeah, I just need a moment to catch my breath, and then I'll stand up.
I've just finished this fag, and I'll just be sorted then."
Bobby Charlton makes a nice pass around the 3-minute mark. England playing very direct, looking for the strikers. Scotland are more on the floor, but around 5 minutes in, it's worth noting that Scotland are looking very impressive. It's kind of like watching, I'm trying to think of a modern day example, but say you watch Man United these days, a lot of times teams just press them because they're just waiting for them to slip up, and I feel like Scotland are a bit like, they look more up for it than England.
You look at like kind of slight comparison of Man City maybe, of the way that they're able to like kind of get around a side and pressure them, but Scotland again with the play, as it kind of becomes quite interesting as the game goes on. To us, not knowing this Scotland team, it's just revealed that there are a lot of good footballers in the team, and it's just like, whoa, wait a minute, like, they're fantastic. Like, in just not knowing, it's like their like mask has slipped off, and there's someone else, really, isn't it?
Yeah, they're not just in this game because of passion and desire. There's skill, but 5 minutes or so in, and they are looking like the team to beat, I guess. First shot of the match goes to them. Billy Bremner for Scotland. It's not the best. It's a absolute skyrocket, but they're looking a lot better than England.
Yeah, definitely. It's interesting. I think Billy Bremner plays very well in this game. I had to check it was the same one who played for Leeds, because you hear a lot about that Leeds team of the time. Again, clearly successful, being in European competition. And again, you're kind of just led to believe that, he was just a thug and Leeds sides bully their way to the titles. But he genuinely plays so well in this game. But to me, I couldn't get Stephen Graham out of my head from the Damned United. I was just like, well, that's what he's going to look like, isn't it? Clearly.
Yeah.
As well, Hurst turns inside McKinnon. Well, it's just like a basketball game. As it starts off, it's just you have the ball, we have the ball, and we'll just kind of chuck ourselves forward and just let the defence worry about the rest of it.
Yeah, the commentators add into the sense of occasion and the needle by giving players nicknames, which I love. I'm not sure who the commentator is, and I should have found out, but he's quite a treat on throughout the game. So Jim Baxter is christened Big Jim Baxter.
Yeah.
And Jack Charlton, can you guess what he's christened?
Large Charlton.
Big Jack Charlton. So we've got Big Jim Baxter, Big Jack Charlton duking it out in the middle of the park. Yeah, it's not the last we'll hear of Big Jack Charlton not the last we'll hear of Big Jack Charlton in this game today. But yeah, the commentator notes himself, Scotland have looked much quicker in the tackle compared to England's more casual style, and that's why they've looked better. Is this what we'd now call a gegenpressing?
Yeah, I guess it's just them players working very, very hard. It's not like, pressing was invented in kind of the 2010s, really. It's been around. We just kind of call it something different. It's probably a bit more organised now. Here, it feels like everyone's just doing their own thing. If there's the ball, I'll go and close it down then.
Yeah, a lot of slide tackles. I think I counted about 60 by the 10-minute mark. I mean, you could be looking at an abandoned match today. England, for all their faults, I guess, for Scotland being the better team, England hit the bar straight from a corner.
Yeah, Jimmy Greaves hits the bar straight from a corner. It's, again, why is he on corners? One of the great English goal scorers, but they felt that, well, he's the person to take corners, but he nearly scores from it, so fair enough. That
would have been fantastic. Just after that, there's a big late challenge by Big Jack Charlton, who gives away a free kick on Lennox. Not long after that, there's a corner, which falls for Law, but his shot flies over again, so that's 2 chances now Scotland have skyrocketed.
Yeah, kind of watching the match, it does feel like there's a lot more guile and care with the ball than we thought, but there is a lot of thrashing it around. Do you kind of think that's just because the ball was heavier? We've got to just put our foot through it and see what happens?
Yeah, maybe. I mean, God, it must have took some welly to sky it over twice, but maybe it's just the emotion of the game as well, and they're all pumped up and ready to get stuck in.
Because it seems to be like it either goes really close to the goal or it just goes out of the camera shot. There just doesn't seem to be a lot in between. I mean, Jeff Hurst kind of does say that his 3rd goal in the 6-6 final, he's not even trying to score. He's literally just trying to get rid of the ball, even when he's so close, but he just ends up in the top corner.
Wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah.
So about 10 minutes in, Nick, would you say this is England so far?
Yeah, they're struggling, aren't they, with the Scotland team? Again, maybe they just didn't think that they were as good, because you wouldn't actually see them on TV, and you would never play them either in our club competition unless it was in Europe, which would be so rare.
You see a bit of arrogance, I think, in the team, just the way they approach it. You can see it as arrogance compared to how Scotland attack, which is just like they look so up for it and they look so good. England need to completely be at the best. And if I would agree, that is it's very England so far. And if you thought that was very England, on 12 minutes it gets a lot more England, because there's injury troubles and all sorts of madness happening here. The game really takes a turn for the strange.
It's kind of the big moment of the game, really. So Lennox and Charlton are both, this is Jack Charlton, are both down on the floor from a mega tackle from Jack Charlton. He just goes straight through Lennox. Takes 2 England staff to carry him off the pitch.
Two England staff whose names I've noted. So he's gone down injured, Big Jack, and he's being carried off by Harold Shepherdson and Jack Cocker. And I just love those names.
Just beautiful, aren't they?
Harold Shepherdson and Jack Cocker. It just works perfectly for the era. And Big Jack has been chopped down like a tree.
Well, it's his tackle though. That's the thing. He goes in on Lennox, and it's him that he injures himself. I mean, Lennox afterwards would say that for his knee after the game was losing so much blood, he had a new suit to put on, and then the blood just went straight through his suit and just stuck to him.
Oh man, again, hard blow.
Yeah.
There's a bit of a shithousery after that as Charlton's off getting treatment. More to come on that later. A bit of shithousery from Dennis Law, drifting just wide just after. He boots the ball away instead of giving it back to Gordon Banks. The crowd, they're not as mad as they could be, and no yellow card, obviously, because man up.
Yeah, just get on with it at this point, isn't it? I don't think time wasting is particularly a thing unless you're going to boot the ball out off the pitch, really. But there's time wasting wasn't a part of the game at this point, really.
Yeah, I don't know whether England used it to their advantage in the World Cup. Any of this sort of, I don't know. When you're looking at Dennis Law doing something like that, is his ambition tactical there, or is it to wind up? Like, is it to go right? Let's just kill a bit of time, unsettle them, or is it like, fuck you?
I think it's just to mess around, really. It's getting their heads. I mean, you do maybe see like he'll just try and chip it over the keeper, even if he knows he's offside or if nothing's happening. And you see it quite a bit. Dennis Law's just doing lots of stuff around the pitch at times.
Yeah, England have never been any good at that in my lifetime anyway, just in terms of winding the opposition up and doing these sort of what we perceive as dirty little tricks. I think Scotland in this era and the team they're playing and the challenge they're facing, it suits them to try and, you know, put it up England, so to speak.
Yeah, and to disrupt them and throw them off their game as well. I think with that, I mean, you look at what you'd kind of define as like winding the opposition up, things like Simeone in '98, you'd probably think about, and England have probably been the victim of that and fallen into the trap instead of being a victim is probably the wrong word, but just not thinking about it clearly and maybe not reacting to this kind of stuff, which you need to do to kind of progress as teams.
Yeah, on 17 minutes, I mean, Scotland are still in the ascendancy, but there's a great ball through by Bobby Charlton to Jimmy Greaves, who finds Jeff Hurst, but they're shot straight at the keeper, so they're trying to find the way through. Charlton looks great every time he's on the ball, but, well, I say every time he's on the ball. Every time he's on the ball and he's not completely just closed down straight away by some mad Scottish animals in the middle of the park.
Yeah, it's so end-to-end. It's like a game of Pac-Man. It's just like these guys are running down these channels and just going past each other and being chased by
It's a bit like Snake as well.
Yeah, quite a bit, actually. The ball's over there. We've all just got to move and just try and get into that top corner now where the ball's led, but it's really fun to watch, actually, and the Scotland fans actually booing when Gordon Banks receives a back pass.
I was going to say that must be our first back pass of the game.
Oh yeah, they come up again.
Yeah, they come up again. It's just a crazy. I can imagine booing, but I think the Scotland fans just want to boo everything. But I guess it hints towards maybe even then the back pass was seen as a bit of a dickhead's thing to do. If they're booing, you know, it kind of points to me that it's seen as part of the game. But oh, come on, let's not do that. Not today when it's England v Scotland. We should be above this.
Yeah, and like you say, Bobby Charlton beats 3 players in the middle just before he hits a shot over. Like, whenever he is on the ball and running forward, he's just fantastic in this game. It's the first time I've actually seen him play a 90 minutes, and as the game goes on, I just think he's fantastic. Yeah,
20 minutes in, I'd say Scotland's still better overall, but England's front three are starting to show their quality. Still, Dennis Law's looking lethal and the main man for Scotland. What comes up next is one of the most ridiculous and hilarious things I've ever seen, and it is so England. I will try to explain it. The goal kick goes short to Ray Wilson, maybe about 2 yards from the byline, and just sort of to the left of the goalkeeper. So it's a very short pass to Wilson, who then he's closed down and he tries to do a step over, and that takes about 35 seconds for him to get one leg over. And he kind of aborts it halfway through before playing the same 2-yard pass back for Banks. Doesn't somebody fall over as well? I'm sure somebody else falls over.
I think he plays the ball back. The difference is there's a Scottish player in between them now, so he just nips the ball off them both.
He falls over himself, doesn't he? As he's trying to abort the step over and turn it into a pass.
Yeah, pretty much.
So under a bit of pressure, he just completely crumbles. He doesn't even make it back to the 2 yards to Banks. It's crossed in by Baxter to Law. The goal is wide open, but he just misses. He's stretching for it. It's a bit Gascoigne 1990 maybe.
Yeah. I think they're calling it like a really bad miss, but I think there's a lot else that goes on here. It looks like Dennis Rowe is running at full pelt. The ball falls to his left foot and he hits it the side netting. It's a harder chance than it looks, and the cross from Baxter is good, but he's almost trying to get rid of the ball before Banks and Wilson can even get near him. So he's put so much on it, it's not actually cared when it's crossed in, and by doing that it puts Law off and he misses an open goal.
That's a good analysis of it. I would focus more on the I shouldn't swear there again. I've already had one. I would focus more on the hilarious defending. I would say if you want to watch one clip of this game, people, dig that out. 20 minutes.
That's up there, isn't it?
Oh my god. So yeah, as the clock ticks past 20 minutes, Jack Charlton's still off. He's been off for about 8 minutes now. So in modern times, he would be not in the shout of coming back on. But the commentator says England trainers are trying to get that injured leg fit enough to continue this game.
He's a robot or something. They're trying to just put a new leg on him like he's a F1 car or something.
His leg's injured, and like these trained medical staff are going, "It's your leg, mate," and he goes, "Oh no, it's my flipping leg." Which bit? It turns out to be a broken toe.
Yeah, he's fully broken his own toe on someone else's knee.
Yeah, but they're trying to get him back on. Do you think it was even considered? Can you make a sub?
No, so I think we'll come on to it in a slight bit. But subs are introduced in international football, but for some reason they've not been recognised for this game. So you actually can't bring anybody off at this point. So it's just a case of, well, you've got 10 men, or wait till he's right and comes on.
Just wait till he's right. It's been 8 minutes and they're still working to get that leg fixed. Around the 20-minute mark again, we're seeing Bobby Moore seems to be sort of everywhere. England are starting to maybe try and fight back a little bit more, but it feels like every time they do, there's a Scotland ambush just waiting. Yeah,
there's a couple of fouls start to pile up, as you say, and Bobby Moore is on every free kick. It doesn't matter if it's in his own area, his own half, the other half. It's just he is the free kick specialist, and having a centre half do that just because you're the furthest person back, basically, is just really interesting. But there's a reason for that. He's Bobby Moore and he's bloody brilliant on the ball. So
true. There is a Scotland corner on 22 minutes. A good save by Gordon Banks. The quality has dipped a little now. As you say, the fouls are piling up. That first minute of cultured football that I was so inspired by, it's turned into a bit of what you'd expect from an England v Scotland game of 1967, I guess. Scotland do a pass back to the keeper of their own around 23 minutes. Again, it just never looks right, does it, when you watch
not
it?
At all.
I just think it's crazy that you could do that. It's such a game killer, and it feels like, maybe just from an England perspective, it feels like when Scotland do it, I was a bit like, oh, God, they're just toying with us and messing with us.
Now you can see why Scotland were booing.
Now I can see why Scotland
it's just
were
like,
booing.
don't do that. It is crazy, especially when we've grown up on football where the back pass has never even been a thing, and you just see it here, and it's just like, is this? I think, as you say, it's kind of, is this the original playing out from the back? Because if you were stuck, instead of trying to find another defender, you'd give it back to a goalkeeper who'd then roll it out to you, because there's kind of less danger then. Because if it doesn't work, you just give it back to the goalkeeper.
Yeah, I do. Oh God, it just seems crazy. But I guess there may be rules that we have now that in the future you look back on and go, "What the hell were they thinking with that?"
Yeah.
Well, one of the rules we have at the moment is that an awful tackle from behind will get you at least a yellow card. But Gemmell goes in. Gemmell fells. Well, Gemmell is felled by Wilson. Excuse me. 24 minutes in. Gemmell is felled by Wilson right on the edge of the box, maybe even in the penalty area, and it's an absolutely filthy slide, but the commentator refers to it as a good, strong, hard, perfectly fair tackle, before adding a couple of seconds later that Gemmell is rolling around in agony from a perfectly strong, hard, fair tackle.
Yeah, nothing to see here. Just move on. We've already got one person off the pitch with a broken toe. Just get on with it.
Well, off the pitch no longer, because on 26 minutes, Jack Charlton is back on.
Yes, here he comes.
Nick, do you want to kind of break down? So Jack Charlton's back on. What do you see his role as being in the game going forward? What would you presume if you were the manager? What would you be saying to him? I'm gonna, get back out there, and where are you going to play? What would you say?
Well, you'd think, Jack Charlton, a brilliant centre-back for England next to Bobby Moore, really, really settled partnership. But because he is now injured, and clearly injured as you go along in the game, they just stick him up front.
Yeah.
And he's up front, and it kind of means the rest of the team is in chaos, because no one else really knows where they should be going. If they're playing this supposed 4-3-3, or if it goes to a 2 or whatever, they're just all over the place after this. I think you've got Jeff Hurst on the left, Martin Peters playing centre midfield, and then he goes into defence alongside Bobby Moore as well.
What do you think the thinking is behind putting an injured centre-back up front? It's
got to be just the fact that if you had the injured centre-back playing centre-back, the Scotland players are just going to run around him, because if he can't run, or if you just launch the ball towards him, maybe he'll get a flick on, or I guess that he's less danger up there. Get him away from your goal, and he's going to cause less problems for you.
Get the poor man to the hospital, I would say.
Yeah.
And you know what? England are missing him at the back, because 2 minutes after he comes back on, it's 1-0 to Scotland.
Ready with a free kick to Baxter. This is number 6, Jim Baxter. And a chance here for... It bounced out, and Dennis Law this Law. This Law has been the terrier of the first half. He's worked and worked and worked, and just reward coming to him there by catching that rebound and putting the ball in the back of the net. I think England are really up against it now.
Yeah, it's a really good goal at times because there's a lot of setup in there, but it ends up being a bit of a scramble. So Baxter brings the ball forward, plays it to his right, ends up getting a deflection as England can't clear it. Comes back to Baxter, who shoots, Banks saves, but Law's there for an easy tap in and walks away with his iconic one arm in the air celebration.
Yeah, it's a pinball situation in the box and a poacher's goal. The commentator says that Dennis Law has been the terrier of this first half, working and working and working, and Scotland deserved the goal. Hard to argue with that. I love the terrier analogy.
They say it quite a lot as well. It's repeatedly Law the terrier, isn't it?
Yeah, well, he kind of went into this game with a bit of a terrier-like mindset, didn't he?
Yeah, so he kind of said he was fueled by the game of the fear of going back to Manchester United and having to see Charlton and Styles and just them winding him up, basically, just having the game on them. So
fueled by banter.
Yeah, pretty much, even in this era. But but now you've got the idea of you've got to chase the game against a very, very good Scotland team, and you've pretty much got one player down apart from a man up front who's injured. And
as you say, the team's in a bit of a chaos structurally. Everyone's all over the place.
Especially the fact that the only two people I definitely know where they are at all times is the goalkeeper and Jack Charlton. Everybody else could be playing anywhere else on the pitch because it's so hard to actually follow where people are because you haven't got names on their back. The quality of the video is not amazing and the numbers aren't always clear to work out. So you're just like, okay, I think that's Bobby Charlton because he's quite recognisable, but the rest of them, you're kind of making it up as you go along. Well, yeah, definitely. You've got Jimmy Greaves with a header from a corner. I mean, let's not forget he was taking corners not long ago. So is it just... I just think those things were not thought about as real tactics. It's like, right, take the corner, you're closest to it. Yeah. Or what have you. It's not bad, but it's not a bad chance, sorry, but there's a foul given anyway. But on Peters, who was just in defence, so he's up front and everyone just... It's all piling in. Yeah. But while England are living in their world of chaos, you've got Dennis Law straight back at it, dancing through two England players. He's blocked. Challenges are coming at him from absolutely everywhere. I've got to say, Dennis Law is so impressive to me. I'm not really... This sounds silly, but I'm not really one for watching old football games. No, but well, especially from this kind of era, because it's you've kind of got the history is already in front of you. If you know the history and you know the important moments, then you wouldn't just go, I'm going to stick this game on from 1969 just because I've got nothing to do, would you? I would now. Yeah, we got this podcast. Yeah, well, we can do now. That's why it's fun, I think, to go back and watch players like Law, and you'd want to see more of those kind of people too. We're doing it so you don't have to. But the point I was going to make is that, you hear a lot about him, but to actually see what type of a player he was, not just the stats and X amount of goals and X amount of games, it's really interesting. He reminded me of Mo Salah. Yeah, I think that's a really good description of him, actually. He's kind of like playing wide and drifting in and just causing a lot of menace. And yeah, I think that's really good because as much as centre forward that Dennis Law was, of what you kind of see of him, he spends a lot of his time out wide actually in this game. He does, yeah. It seems very tactically astute. There's a Willie Wallace chance. Well, he makes it a chance for himself, really. It's a good attempt on 30 minutes. It does miss, and the camera just shows him holding up a fist and walking away, kind of like Grandpa Simpson in The Simpsons. Wallace is playing really well. Baxter as well. Scotland are doing well. And then 29 minutes, you hear the chance of ease it, ease it, ease it. Yeah, it's so good, isn't it? But again, the commentators are quite confused. They think it's the crowd chanting England, England, England. Maybe we're confused, but it's not, is it? You can hear the Scottish accent in the chant. Yeah, definitely. And again, who would be more buoyed at this period? Because Scotland are making loads of chances. And again, you look at people like Styles. I don't know where he's supposed to be playing at the minute, but they need him in front of that back four because there's so much running in the game. I know it sounds silly, but there's so much dribbling with the ball, and it's just dribbling straight down the middle or, just in a line, and it's so hard for people to deal with. Yeah, so we're half an hour in. England are 1-0 down and being outclassed. Plus, Jack Charlton is injured and up front, so we have a little mountain to climb here for the world champions who are, 17 games unbeaten? Yeah, the commentators are quite cutting at this point, just saying things like bad ball, and it's just such disdain with the way they're passing it around, really, from England, and it being cut out by Scotland. I noticed, well,
I think I noticed it was an observation anyway that I feel like the commentators did a relatively decent job of being neutral.
Yeah, I'd say so. I think they
compared to now.
Yeah, I think you'd also kind of get Billy Wright's kind of giving England quite a lot of excuses as you go along here as well. I think he mentions later about like it's the Wembley pitch and it's a different size, but this is England's home pitch. They should be used to playing on it.
And they won the World Cup on there not too long before.
Less than a year, exactly.
I guess the non-neutrality comes through in the disdain, as you say. Bad ball.
Yeah,
sort yourselves out, England, for God's sake.
It's like trying to tell them off a little bit. You get McGreedy at this time as well. Jinx past more England players and lots of cutbacks. Again, a la Jordan Pro.
I'm telling you. I was not even ahead of my time. I was continuing a long football heritage right there, and I should be thanked for it. I should be held up for that.
Clearly,
yeah. I wished I could just recite the buttons of a square and R2 and just cut that shot back. You're about to make the shot, cut it back, and it just takes people on for you. 32 minutes in, it's very England now. They're creating nothing. They can't keep the ball. They're defending for their lives. Bobby Moore does a really nice two-footed tackle from behind. I know we've already said about the bad tackles, but that was a clean, nice tackle to force another Scotland attack.
Yeah,
Scotland look like machines. The fitness is levels above England there. Their energy for the game is levels above England.
And they know their roles as well, which England just don't at this point. They're kind of just running around not knowing what to do because it's like, okay, should I be here? Should I be here instead? And yeah, it's not great.
They're not all running around.
Yeah.
The commentator notes on the 35-minute mark. So Jack Charlton went off after 12 minutes with what would later be diagnosed as a broken toe. He came back on 20 minutes. We've said broken toe and was put up front. 35 minutes, the commentator says, and there you see Jack Charlton limping, just limping. He's unable to contribute anything to the England war effort at the moment.
War effort, there's no need for that either, is there?
I know.
Charlton's, basically just playing on one leg, isn't he? Martin Peters is now up front again, Styles on the left. He crosses it into the area for Jack Charlton and has a header saved low by the keeper.
Yeah. So just after being told he can't contribute anything, it's England's best chance so far, really.
Yeah, definitely.
It's a nice cross, a nice cross range. He probably should have done better with, but let's give him a bit of leeway for having a broken toe. He does try another nice attacking header to try and set up Hurst just after that. So you can't keep him out of the game. He's involved. He's fighting and he's ready, but he's limping hard.
Yeah, he is. And then you get to like 37 minutes, and as you've said, there's a bit of a Scottish shithousery, as you'd say. Bremner just pretending to be injured on the floor with and just looking up and smiling at the goalkeeper. At one point, they're just rubbing a sponge on his leg, and there's just bits of tape and God knows what falling off his leg.
Yeah, the commentator says that he's smiling. It's a bit like a wrestling villain, isn't he?
Yeah, like he sees, they don't know, the ref doesn't know what I'm doing, but you all know what I'm doing.
What a heel, Billy Bremner. This is where they also mention, as you say, the size of Wembley. It's a bit of an excuse. The formations do sort of settle down a little bit now. Yeah,
this part of the half anyway. I think they do slightly change it afterwards, but you've got the full backs who are kind of still where they are, and Cohen and Wilson. Styles drops in with Moore, and then you've got Ball and Charlton in the middle, and they're basically just playing four up front with Jack Charlton, who can't really move, as we've said, and they're still just trying to stick to that three. So Peters, Greaves, and Hurst are the dominant players that are up there.
A 4-2-4.
Yeah.
The commentators again use the term working like terriers, which has been used a couple of times in this half. Nick, would you say that is... Do you think Chris Kamara was influenced with his defending like beavers?
Very much could be, yeah. Maybe I think Cammy was just absolutely terrified of not being able to think of the word at that point, wasn't he? Well, it feels like terriers was more of a thought-out thing than what Cammy was doing back then.
Terriers? I'm thinking of a Yorkshire Terrier.
I think that is what they're thinking of, isn't it? Yeah.
Weird though. Then I see them as quite like an uppity dog, not a work hard dog.
Work hard.
A hard working dog.
Is this dogs?
Is this dogs? With 5 minutes to go of the half, Scotland are comfortable. They make a great chance for Law.
Yeah, Baxter again. A deep ball threads into Bremner, who's pretty much playing alongside Dennis Law at this point. Comes together with Banks as Banks manages to save it. Both are down, and Scotland just kick the ball out straight away, really. So there's a bit of a coming together, and the players are just taking a minute, I think.
Yeah. Well, we're approaching half time quite rapidly. At this point, if this was happening today, the Twitter moaning would be unreal because England have really been schooled in this first half. It's kind of flew by.
Yeah.
And at the same time, it must have felt like a long time for England because they could have been a couple of goals down. I mean, we forget already about the 2-yard pass back that turned into, you know, and Jack Charlton's out of the defence now. It's not going right. It has the feel of a loss coming.
There's definitely like a memeable moment in this point as well, as Dennis Law's on the floor after he gets injured and he's just sucking on a sponge. You know, like the sponge that you put on your legs. He just gets it and just shoves it in his mouth. It's like it's giving him magical powers or something.
Yeah, a sponge cake maybe.
Yeah. But there's a shot from Lennox as well. He beats a man and finds himself in space, deflected back for a corner, and it's like I say, there's just so much running in the game, especially from someone like Lennox. So I just throughout this game, I was just amazed that I'd never really heard of this player. I thought he was fantastic.
Yeah, the commentator notes Ray Wilson's limping doesn't seem to be as tragic as Jack's injury though, but I think it was you know, what we would class today as an injury.
Yeah,
that'd be worth of you know, dragging him off. The rest of the half kind of continues the same up and through to half time. England aren't really doing much. Scotland are all over them, breaking dangerously here and there whenever they can get the chance.
Yeah, and you've got Greaves and Hurst. Whenever they're playing close together, it seemed to be linking well. I think it's just the front half of the horse up front that's just walking around and just being the big distraction, isn't it?
Yeah, and half time comes and England are losing 1-0. Not yet 12 months removed from winning the World Cup. They're losing 1-0 to Scotland. Oh,
not great, is it?
It's not great.
And at this point as well, Bobby Charlton's having to cover so much space where his good passing in the earlier part of the game is just totally taken out of it because he's just chasing shadows around him.
Yeah, some really good Scottish performances as well. You can't hate them for, you know, it's not like they've just came and put everyone behind the ball or just stuck loads of nasty tackles in. I mean, the tackles have been flying, but they've played really good football.
Yeah, I think so. Lennox, Baxter, Wallace, I think they've all been brilliant. And as the second half starts, it kind of starts a bit the same way. Yeah,
I think a little bit of mind games and a power play there. England are waiting and ready. Scotland are trudging back, just like, yeah, we'll take our time, laddie.
Yeah.
I do really like the Scotland team, actually. Scotland start as they ended, yeah, as you say, on top. The commentators are kind of already resigned to a defeat at this point as well. As you say, they're not too biased, but you can sense that they're a bit shocked by England.
There's like disappointment there almost, of just like, well, when this happens, it's just happened and we have to just get over it. I mean, there's a whole half of football to be played yet, but
yeah, Lennox and Law are teaming up well as well. There's a chance quite early on after a brilliant run by Lennox. He goes through wide, crosses, but Law can't get in front of Banks. I mean, Dennis Law, let's just have another moment of appreciation for him. He's doing more on his own than the England front three or the front four. 3.5 with Jack Charlton.
I'd give him a half.
Got really big work rate, lots of skill and end product, as we've seen. 55 caps, 30 goals for Scotland. That's a great record. Apparently, he also won the Ballon d'Or, and his 46 goals in a single season for United is a club record.
Yeah, he's in, like I say, he's in quite obscene form in this period. In 63-64, he scored 46 goals in all the competitions, which is still a record at the club, and scored 39 in the following season. So he's just absolutely consistent.
Big numbers. Got to be one of the greatest Scottish forwards of all time, surely, if not clear.
It's probably, you'd say him and Dalglish are the two best Scottish players ever. You'd probably go along with that. I mean, there's the reason he's called the King, and there's a little video I watched of this as well, which was Law, Bobby Brown, and a couple of the other players. I think it was Lennox, and the way they talk about Dennis Law and the way they kind of look at him, it's like he's one of them, but he's not one of them. He's kind of like, they all just revere him and talk about him in just such a brilliant way because, again, as you're learning here, this was just his bread and butter week in, week out doing this.
Interesting. I just want to say sorry that I didn't think of Kenny Dalglish then. Any Liverpool fans who are listening... 87 minutes in, there's a big chance for England. Alan Ball dances down the left, beats a few players and crosses in for it's Big Jack Charlton, isn't it?
Oh, it's Big Jack, yeah. Definitely. He goes through, beats a few players, as you say, and crosses for Jack Charlton. The ball bounces around and the Scottish keeper saves it on the line. Greaves is saying it's in, but the linesman's German, so there's no way that's happening again.
How very ironic. I bet he's like, you can get to no chance, mate. Jog on. Very England, because again, it's one of those sliding doors moments where you can imagine it happening today, can't you?
And maybe like a moment of what actually is England. So you've got something that's less than a year away or from them actually winning the World Cup, and it's something that's coming back to bite them of like, well, this actually happened to you, so it's kind of karma that this has happened.
Dramatic irony.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, let's again a moment for Big Jack. He's had 2 great chances. He's putting himself about. He can hardly move. What an afternoon he's having.
For the fact that he is, as you say, walking around on one leg, pretty much every time he kicks the ball, he's pretty much bang on the floor straight away in pain and just writhing around. He's not giving up, and you just think, wow, brilliant.
Yeah, there's another good England chance, 49 minutes after some nice work from Bobby Charlton, I think. Called back offside, though. It was Jimmy Greaves with the chance. The commentator actually refers to him as Mr. Greaves, so he says, Mr. Greaves must have been offside at that moment. Nice touch with the formal address.
I love that, yeah. It's really good.
But the reason I think that's, even though it was an offside chance, probably worth mentioning, is Bobby Charlton starting to have a bit of influence on the game with setting up that chance.
Yeah, his running through and his passing is just brilliant. It's like he's on a different speed to everybody else. Like I say, rides 2 challenges, finds Greaves on the left-hand side, but shoots straight at the keeper. Yeah,
it must have been a tactic from Big Sir Alf to get Bobby on the ball. I mean, surely he's noted as England's best player at this point, even in a team as strong as this.
You'd probably say, and I'd say after watching this game, after the games we've watched so far in the recordings we've done, I think this is the England player who's probably played the best in what we've seen as an individual performance. I think there's another 1 or 2 players in this who I think have maybe played better than Charlton in this game, but as an England player, I think this is easily the best individual performance we've seen from an England player.
Oh, that's a big shout.
Well, I don't think we've hardly done any games which is just like, oh, weren't they good? I think this is definitely it from Bobby Charlton.
I suppose you're right. Yeah, so we're at about, what, 50 minutes maybe at this point. There's another Scotland attack and chance.
Yeah, there's a bad ball by Wilson to Bremner, wide to Lennox, who's crowded out by Moore. Bobby Charlton with a great ball up to Jack Charlton, and Moore's up in the attack as well. And then Lennox races forward again, finds Law, fashion a shot, and Gemmell just drags wide.
So a bit of back and forth there.
Back to the basketball kind of terminology, aren't they?
Yeah. At 53 minutes, this was my favourite bit of the game, I've got to say. Jack Charlton makes an so he's not just sticking up front, he's getting back into midfield to do his doggies. He makes an interception near the halfway line and he wins the ball back, and it's like he just looks like he's just going to drop dead. He's just like, he wins it back and he stands there flopping about, and the other player doesn't even bother to tackle him. He's like, are you all right, mate?
Jack Charlton's so injured. He looks like Stephen Merchant doing a river dance. It's just absolutely crazy, isn't it? Saying about substitute rules. So apparently the FA brought them in 1965 to 66 season for injuries, but it took till 67, 68 for subs to be allowed for tactical reasons. It was a big Don Revy who did that.
Oh yeah, but surely he's got an injury. The commentator says he can't stay on the field much longer now, so everyone's kind of giving up hope except for Big Jack, really. Well, strange one.
Well, if you're not allowed it, I guess no one else is ready, are they? It's not like they've got loads of players on the bench ready to come off because subs aren't a thing yet. So they're all just sat there wearing the suits as well. So it's not like it's even like a thing for that. But it's weird that it's not allowed in this game. But in football in general, it's becoming widely acceptable to make even a tactical substitution, even over an injury one.
Really strange. The crowd are getting a bit aggy now. It's England are fighting. They're showing a lot of fight, but it doesn't look like it's going to happen. I mean, you're getting goal line clearances. Jack Charlton's nearly collapsing in the middle of the pitch. When England do break, they tend to lose it, and then Dennis Law's comes close to punishing them a few times. So we're at about 55 minutes now. You can hear the agginess from the crowd, and what do you think at this point? Does it look like there's a way back in it for England?
It doesn't feel like they're making lots of chances. There was one for Charlton, as we say, and a couple of little bits, but there's not much. There is Lennox though for Scotland, who is just brilliant at this point. He goes past 3 players, sends them for a pipe, and shoots wide. I mean, I didn't know a lot about him going into the game, but doing a bit of research, he is a genuine all-time Celtic great. He had 259 games for Celtic, 157 goals in his first stint. Then strangely went to Houston Hurricanes.
Wow.
Yeah, for in the 78 season, and came back to Celtic, getting another 10 goals in that. So he's I think he's second top scorer ever for Celtic.
Yeah, no, as you say, I've never really heard of him. Apparently, he didn't get too many Scotland appearances though.
No, he only played 10 times for Scotland, and I mean, who the hell were they playing over him in this? I think he is the star for me of this game. I knew nothing about him, and I think he just runs it. The amount of how easily he walks past people, his passing's almost perfect, and yeah, I just don't understand it. Apparently, he said that a lot of the Celtic players of that 67 team didn't get a fair crack of the whip under the manager.
You wonder whether it's just how to describe it, political.
Yeah, it could be. Yeah, it could easily be that. I mean, it says something about Lennox as well. Apparently, Di Stefano had his testimonial and invited Lennox over. He said that he was the one player that he actually feared playing against.
Incredible. This Scottish era of football isn't. There must be a movie made about it.
Yeah, you'd think so.
So many big characters, so many big results, and the players as well. Before that, all of that before you even mention the players. England are trying still. They're still trying, Nick. Oh, God. Bobby Charlton on 57 minutes. He has a nice little shimmy and a shot from the edge of the box before the commentator calls him the fair-haired Bobby Charlton. Yeah. Seems a little bit generous even at this point.
He's got a fair bit of hair. Let's just say that at this point.
Yeah, both teams are starting to tire now, though. It's getting a bit chaotic. Law's coming back a lot deeper, so maybe Scotland are... Although I don't think the tactical intelligence on either side's there to just go, right, can we sit on this for a bit and try and keep it at 1-0 and maybe catch them on the break?
You'd maybe say the only tactical part of that is just foul more. Just, get the ball in and just foul them all. I mean, balls fouled by Bremner. The referee, just very flamboyant, is just saying, get on with it. Let's just carry on.
I feel like in every game that we cover around this time, I'm really frustrated with England. And I felt like it at this point, about an hour in, they're doing nothing. You don't look at these lot and think they won the World Cup a year before. I know Scotland are on a high coming into the game, but it's going to sound disrespectful. It's Scotland.
Yeah.
Come on. I mean, I don't know if they were at the World Cup or what have you, but England should be up for this more than they are. And it just seems like they've just been mentally sort of swamped by these Scottish Terriers.
I think you've also got the fact that, like we say, this is not actually the England team who won in 66. This is an England team kind of like almost a weird tribute act because they're not able to play the players they want in the position, and maybe a bit of the hunger's gone. I don't think this clearly isn't the end of this England team because they do go on and do well at tournaments, but it's not the same at this point.
Yeah, there's another Jack Charlton chance. Would you believe it? There's another Jack Charlton chance just over an hour in. A free kick for England. It comes to Peters wide left. He lifts one in for Jack Charlton, who beats his man and the goalkeeper, but it's off the line by John Greig. Oh my God! 2 best chances, maybe 3 best chances have all fell to Jack Charlton. Do you remember? I don't think it happens much anymore. I mean, he has been effective. You can't say he's not been effective up front, considering, even not considering if it was a tactical decision. I don't feel like anyone does that as a tactic anymore, though. Sticks a big man from the centre back up front for like the last 10 minutes.
No, I think teams are just a lot more prepared for different outcomes, aren't they? They're like, you've probably got like 4 or 5 game plans that any team has that they can just kind of call from. I mean, my kind of like memory of any form of that is I remember on my Master League on Pro, another nice little mention for it. I had Chris Samba playing in my team in defence, and just when I was bored, I used to put him up front because he just won absolutely everything. And it's not something that's done as much these days, let's say.
No, yeah, I'm trying to think if I had a similar player. I think he might have been Chris Samba as well in my Master League.
It must have been a good year for Chris Samba, wasn't it?
The next 10 minutes or so we're 65 minutes in. It's a little bit quiet, isn't it?
Yeah, I think so. You got Moore trying to force the ball at the field, but it's just not sticking. And then Peters plays a 1-2 off the thin wall, who is Jack Charlton, but he's beaten out by the Scottish defence again. Yeah,
there's a little tussle on 65 minutes. Dennis Law wins the tussle with Cohen. McCready with a really good shot from outside the box for Scotland. However, England are starting to look a little bit better.
Yeah.
They clearly have the class on the ball, but they can't match the Scottish fight. That's the problem. You're hoping at this point as an England fan that Scotland are tiring a little because England do seem like they have better quality on the ball at times.
Yeah, I think so. But you look at the fullbacks. I wasn't really impressed with the England fullbacks in this game. They seem to spend most of the game on the floor. I mean, Lennox again beats another
all
player.
those slides.
Yeah, no, Lennox again beats another player, but Styles tackles him. Maybe the first time I can remember anybody actually getting to Lennox in the game, because every time you see him, he's just racing past someone on the floor.
Yeah, I mean, Scotland are trying to liven things up. McKelliog tries a bicycle kick on 67 minutes, referred to by the commentator as an overhead scissors, which I like.
Lovely, isn't it?
Yeah, Dennis Law tried a couple of those actually throughout the game. I think it's just, again, just this sort of throw everything at it. You know, if the ball's there, at least try and scissor kick it. Whereas, you know, today you got to use them very sparingly. I guess it's just seen as a bit of a cock up if you miss the ball completely. Yeah. There's less fire in the game now. There's just over 20 minutes to go, and the press in Scotland is still dangerous. The commentator notes that this time last year, the stadium was ringing to the sounds of England, England, but now it's 40,000 noisy Scots going, Scotland, Scotland. And it's just the way he says it. Like, that's not what they do. That's not how football crowds work.
It's not even how this crowd's working.
Yeah.
He's already got Easy and Scotland mixed up and England mixed up as well, hasn't he? It's yeah.
Like, imagine going to a game and you're just there chanting the name of your team at the others. So you go and see Wolves versus Brighton, and they're just going, Wolves, Wolves, Brighton, Brighton.
No kind of like song around it or anything. Yeah.
Who can shout our name the loudest?
Yeah, there's a bit of a weird moment here as well where Alan Ball gives away a free kick and he punches the ground. And then the number 3 for Scotland, I couldn't quite see who it was. He does the exact same thing and mocks him, so he just gets on the ground and punches it again, which I thought was lovely. And then Scotland immediately win another free kick, and this one's off Styles, I think it is actually. And you can actually hear the Scotland fans chanting off, off, off. I just think, what on earth did you have to do to get a red card in this area? Like, what's different from that incident from the rest of the game that we've seen?
I think they're just on the wind up.
Yeah, it could be.
I love the Scottish crowd in this game. The English crowd seem a bit, they've not got much to shout about, have they?
No, but I did look into it as well. And during the 66 World Cup, Nobby Styles had been reprimanded by FIFA for a bad tackle in a group game against France. I mean, I can only imagine what that tackle was where FIFA
have to get involved.
Yeah, they were like, right, that was too much what you've just done there. And
you killed 4 people, Nobby.
And apparently the FA told Ramsey to drop Styles for the next game, and but he refused and said, well, I'll support him, and you've got to, if you want to get rid of him, you've got to get rid of me for the game as well. This is during the World Cup.
What the hell? Good on him.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, again, what on earth is that challenge?
I'm sorry, have you watched every other game of the football in existence?
Yeah.
75 minutes in now, the game seems pretty dead. England's only tactic really is get the ball to Bobby Charlton and he does it all. Or maybe Jack Charlton can do something, I don't know, but they're still losing 1-0. This is gonna end badly, surely.
Yeah, I mean, again, Bobby Charlton, he receives the ball in the area, facing goal, just plays it over his shoulder and still somehow manages to find an England player wide left. He's just ridiculous at times.
Yeah, he does make a really, really big chance for England. He skips past 2 players, finds Peters on the right of the area who shoots. The ball's blocked and it falls to Hurst, but it's a close range save by Simpson on his debut, let's not forget.
Yeah.
One thing to note, sorry, I don't think I've mentioned it yet. The goalkeepers don't wear gloves.
Yeah, that's true actually, isn't it?
Just blokes with their hands out, just saving balls and punching people.
That awful ball as well that you've already mentioned.
Yeah, with like spikes coming out of it and stuff like that. It was a good chance, but the keeper's done really well. He must be feeling, pretty pleased with himself so far.
I think so. Yeah, it's quite a nice moment here. There's a foul by Styles, obviously on Law, and both men stop, look at the ref, look at each other again, smile, and then back to the ref. It's like a silent comedy at this point.
Well, England's defence is comedy because what happens next is that they go 2-0 down to Scotland. England, what are you doing? Nick.
United players telling each other what they thought about it. And I wouldn't like to have been there with a microphone.
So, now it's Tommy Gemmell for Scotland. Moore gets his head in the way, and Gemmell has it again. And a chance here! Scottish supporters think about that?
It's Bobby Lennox who gets the goal. So Gemmell shoots, but Bobby Moore clears it. Comes back to Gemmell, who heads into the centre of the field. Wallace leaves it. And yeah, Lennox is just all alone in the middle of the penalty area and strokes it past Banks into the left corner.
Yeah, this is so England that but it's probably beyond being is this England? Yes, it's England. They wouldn't go 2-0 down in a game like this now, would they? Surely not. It would.
I don't know. Not maybe not now, but this is a different. Like the era we're living in is a very different England team to the one we're actually covering, isn't it?
True. This one actually won a World Cup.
Yeah, but I'd say that this is still like little pockets of what England actually is. I mean, the Scotland players just absolutely swarm Lennox as well as the fans. You get shots of the fans and they're going crazy.
Easy. You can. Fair play to them, but it's frustrating. England tried to respond pretty much straight away. I mean, they're looking urgent now. They do look like somebody stuck a firecracker up the backside. This unbeaten streak is coming to an end, and yeah, they're being humbled in their own backyard by the noisy neighbours.
You've also got at this point Scotland start to take the piss. So you've got Law and Lennox are just having fun and running rings around them. Law's just running around like he's just come on. But then the ball goes forward and ball finds Moore on the left-hand side, puts a ball near Greaves, and Simpson again somehow gets it away. He's had a really, really solid debut.
Yeah, definitely. It's starting to fall apart with 10 minutes to go. Bobby Charlton's even struggling to make a short pass. Nothing's going right for England. Summed up by the co-commentator saying that England are being outplayed by a quicker, more enterprising side. But you do have to factor in Jack Charlton's injury. I mean, in a game where very little tactics exist, losing a linchpin of your defence and playing him up front, and then that... I suppose I don't want to sound like I'm making excuses, but... I don't know. Should it have been such a big deal that somebody would get injured? Surely you kind of expect it.
If it was like Jeff Hurst or Jimmy Greaves or someone in a stable position, you could maybe say something about it. That's why I think this game is so interesting, because you're actually looking at a player that needs to play at centre half, and if you don't move him, it's going to cause even more problems. I mean, I'd like to live in the world where they just kept Jack Charlton in defence and just see what happened.
Oh,
but yeah,
that would have been tricky.
It would have been.
The co-commentator also says England's defence in this game has been fantastic, but it's been let down by the attackers. I'm not too sure I agree with that.
I think there's just that drip feed of, well, you've still got Charlton up front creating problems for England and Scotland, because it's just, well, we've got to hit. It's like having Peter Crouch on the pitch or someone like that, like of more modern days where, he's on the pitch, we'll just change tactics and we'll lump the ball to him.
The clock is ticking, and Scotland are actually showboating. They're taking the piss a little. They're even doing kick-ups.
I know, yeah. Jim McElligott has the ball and backhills it to Law. It's just a little cheeky, not much is going on, and plays it back to him. And then Law kind of see this, and you feel like the devil is in his eyes a little bit. He's kind of egged on by it, and he stops the ball altogether, backhills it to Baxter, who starts doing keepy uppies on the left wing, and then a scooped pass up into Law, who's all alone in the area. Tries to find the space and find another player, but can't really find much space. But if he'd have actually found someone or got the ball in, genuinely would have been one of the greatest Wembley goals ever.
Well, what happens next is a goal, not one of the greatest Wembley goals ever for sure, but who's it for?
It's for England.
And who scores it?
It's big Jack Charlton.
Oh, you can't keep a good man down. England are back in the game. Jack is back.
Jimmy Greaves. Alan Ball. Greaves again. Ball. Must be one here. Charlton. Yes, it is. Jack Charlton. Jack Charlton. There he is, that brave, limping England hero. Jack Charlton makes it 2-1.
Out of celebration, I thought, you know what, he's done so much in this game, and he gets the ball. It's Alan Ball on the left wing, plays a 1-2 with Greaves, who dances around the players in the 6-yard area, Simpson comes out, but Ball just takes it round him. 3 Scotland players on the line, and Jack Charlton just kind of, he trickles it home, let's say.
Yeah, who cares at this point? I mean, it's gone in. England are back in the game with 5 minutes to go. Jack picks up the ball and he's, oh God, I feel so sorry. He's limping back to the centre circle. And he's trying to pick up the spirits of the England team as well. So you're looking at a man carrying the ball back to the centre circle, limping and shouting, "Come on, lads, come on." I mean, so brave.
Again, he's just hurt himself. And I just think this is such a brilliant moment along with this and well. And honestly, I think we actually need to celebrate this moment as well. So I've got us something.
Oh, God. Okay. Nick's reaching into his bag. Oh, it's a beer. To Jack.
I'm absolutely going to open this now.
Yes.
To Big Jack.
To Big Jack. Good times, good times. Can England snatch a stalemate from the jaws of defeat here? Well, they actually nearly go 3-1 behind straight away.
Yeah, Dennis Law tries a delicious chip. So good. Great save by Banks. And yeah, more Dennis Law enthusiasm. What a ridiculous play. It's just daft, really, what he's doing.
Yeah, the chip is like future football. I wasn't expecting it when I watched it. I was just like, oh, it does it so well as well. But do you think Banks's save was a little for the camera?
I think it's going in. I think it's a good save. I think Banks does make a couple of really good saves in this. And,
yeah.
I don't think it's for the camera. I think it's just that's how good the effort is. Like you say, it's future football. It's not something you're used to seeing.
Something else you're not used to seeing is Scotland going 3-1 up against England, and they do that on 87 minutes.
Jimmy Greaves, Jack Charlton, but he can't get there. It's Billy Bremner. Bremner sending Scotland forward again. The minutes ticking away of this game. Lennox, number 11. Jim McCalliog. Oh, McCalliog! There is number 9, Jimmy McCalliog scores on his international debut for Scotland. 3-1 it is Scotland now.
We've just cracked a can in celebration. I now feel like a dirty alcoholic.
Put it back. Yeah, it's actually another really good goal from Scotland again. It's McCalliog. Bremner out of defence on the left, takes it near the corner. Lennox receives it and waits for McCalliog to run behind Bobby Charlton. Lennox finds him with a lovely ball. McCalliog plays a 1-2 around Martin Peters and beats Banks at the near post. He's actually scored on his debut.
Yeah, well, I think a really good performance from McCalliog as well.
Yeah.
The goal was simple. They just carved right through England. I don't know if they were focusing on the the potential of drawing a second goal back and equaling Scotland, but it just seemed to switch off.
Yeah, absolutely agree. And again, it's just this thing of, that is another thing of England where, oh, actually, they've got a goal back. Can they get one? Oh, no, it's 3-1 now. So that's something quite perfect, isn't it?
Yeah, the easy chance start up again. The commentator finally acknowledged them this time. I think he says, "Oh, even the fans think it's easy now," or something like that. So they've been saying that all game, mate. England have bottled it, completely bottled it. All is lost, or is it?
Nobby Stiles and Jimmy Greaves are in there. This is Nobby Stiles. Bobby Charlton. Aiming for Hurst. It's a goal! It's a goal! It's Jeff Hurst. There he is, Jeff Hurst. And this commentator's words getting stuck down his throat so quickly it just isn't true.
Or is it indeed? England are back in it, 3-2. Again, this is ridiculous. We're now on 88 minutes and we've just seen 3 goals in just a quick space of time.
Madness.
Stiles brings the ball past the halfway line, gives it to Bobby Charlton. He's from deep, crosses the ball into Jeff Hurst, who heads it past Simpson. Really good running header, but is it all too late?
Well, before we see if it is all too late, it was a really good header. I just want to say that a bit kind of a similarity in my mind to the Michael Owen versus Argentina that we've covered.
Yeah, a bit more loopy, but it's up there, isn't it?
He doesn't celebrate the goal.
No, not at all.
I guess he thinks it's all over. It is now.
Yeah, as someone else once said,
it does happen. Scotland take all 3 points. I don't know if it is a 3-pointer or what have you, but they take the victory. They hand England a massive, massive L. The world champions are defeated. Nick, Your thoughts?
Yeah, just a brilliant performance from Scotland, really, isn't it? Totally deserved. Their players were well on top of the whole game, really, and England were just chasing it for a lot too much.
Yeah, definitely. You can't help but congratulate Scotland on what was a really good performance. They put England to the sword. That's the kind of performance you need to beat some a team who are absolutely at the top of the game. You know, you look back at some great runs that have been had in the past, and it's always, you know, a tightly drilled team who are almost of underdogs who just take the fight to them when they're not expecting it. That's the game over. Scotland win 3-2. Thoughts on that game then overall as a spectacle? Did you find it entertaining? Did you think the era of football was what you expected?
Yeah, I just find it really, really interesting that you're kind of discovering this Scotland team for the first time and so many of their players. And yeah, I really enjoyed seeing this. I'd really like to see another England team from this era, another England game, but actually when all the pieces are where they should be, instead of having Jack Charlton up front. Well, what happened when the team is working as it should be? I'd really like to do another one around this era. Yeah,
we did note at the top of the game that there was no national anthem. I think they do it at the end. I swear they all line up after the game. They all line up like they do at the start of the game now.
Yeah, it's official band comes out and they play God Save the Queen. It's very strange because they all line up, as you say, again. The band comes out, they all sing it, and then there's a bit of a pitch invasion on one of the clips I saw afterwards as well. And it's like, what, you wait till the anthems have finished and then there's a pitch invasion. It's all prim and proper, isn't it?
Yeah, very much so. Well, they're all in suits, aren't they, these fans? Yeah, just a few. I thought there were a few quotes that came out after the game that I thought summed it up quite well. Nobby Stiles, Dennis Law's Manchester United teammate, obviously both have had a big part in this game. He said, "I knew the Scots were taking it very seriously when Dennis came onto the pitch wearing shin pads. I'd never seen him wear them before." Love that.
So good, isn't it? It's just they're absolutely prepared for this, aren't they?
Ready for war. The newly knighted Sir Alf Ramsey said, "Scotland deserved their victory, but I hope they will accept it as a fact rather than an excuse when I say we were heavily handicapped by injuries."
Plural. There's only one injury, clearly, the big injury there.
Sounds like he's making excuses to me. Come on, Alf, you're better than this.
Definitely does.
But yeah, fair play to Scotland. England just looked pretty poor. I could imagine this performance happening at any point in my lifetime. Scotland were the better team throughout. It kind of reminds me actually of England versus Croatia, the Wally with a brolly game.
Yeah, that's another 3-2, isn't it? And
it's a 3-2, and it's like we get back into it, and then we get the killer blow at the end, and it's all just a little bit too little, too late. Anybody else? So not anybody else. Anybody who particularly impressed you? Who would you give a Man of the Match award to?
I would give it to Lennox. I thought he was just majestic throughout, running with the ball. His passing was great, and just England defenders again just on their backside throughout. Although, as I said, I think Bobby Charlton's probably the best individual performance we've seen so far.
I would give it. I'm probably blinded by the light of Dennis Law's lovely ginger hair, and yeah, I'd give him the Man of the Match. So we tend to wrap up these podcasts with a little look ahead as to what happened post the game that we covered. Nick, can you tell us what happened next for England after losing this fantastic unbeaten streak?
Yeah, England would end up winning their next two games against Spain and Austria. They would finish top of this qualifying group over Scotland as well. They go through to the next round of the qualifiers to the mini tournament in Italy, going on to lose to a late goal against Yugoslavia. As I say, it's not quite the beginning of the end for this team. That comes in the World Cup 1970. England ended up being actually hampered by a substitute rule that was allowed to happen. So they bring Bobby Charlton off in the 1970 game to rest him, and that's just where England totally lose control of the game because it frees up Beckenbauer, and yeah, they lose 3-2.
That's why you shouldn't be allowed to have these silly substitutions. Never take a Charlton off.
Never, not allowed.
Scotland, I mean, what happens next is they live off this result for the next 5 or 6 decades. I'm joking. But it is the greatest result in their history, surely.
Yeah, you'd say so. Again, I saw a video of a couple of the Scotland players talking about this afterwards and saying that they would become the unofficial world champions. And the unofficial world championship is something that's quite interesting. So it started back at the first ever international friendly in 1872, which was England v Scotland. Annoyingly ended 0-0, but England won the next one 4-2. So they were the first ever unofficial world champions.
I guess it's a bit like the linear title in boxing.
That's exactly it. Initially, the lineage mostly goes around a lot of the home nations until the rest of the world start playing more games. England claimed back the title during the '66 World Cup when they beat the reigning champions Germany in the final. They don't hold on to the title until this game, actually. So
wow. Well, I think I know the answer to this question, but Nick, England versus Scotland, 1967 at Wembley. Scotland 3, England 2. Was this England?
It's so England, isn't it? This is one of the most English things I think we'll cover during the pod.
It is. It's the you wouldn't expect it, would you? It's that dramatic irony thing that we've spoken about of, oh, it has to be Scotland, a team who are like, you know, are close rivals in terms of geography. It has to be this dramatic 3-2. We have to like have a bit of the goal that nearly wasn't. When the goal line clearances and all of that stuff, and Jack Charlton, and just madness, and at the end of it, you're just left with a broken heart.
And it's also a little bit of an excuse as well. So the Jack Charlton thing is an excuse that, again, Alf Ramsey has wheeled out, and the English need a bit of an excuse or a reason as to, oh, we've not won it because of this, like whether it's a disallowed goal or something like that. So
yeah, unfortunately, that's true. And I think that kind of wraps everything up, Nick, unless you got any surprises up your sleeve.
No more surprises, I'm afraid, just a tinny.
That'll do. You can find us on social media, all lowercase, isthis_England. You can also email us at isthisenglandpod@gmail.com. We'd love to hear games that you'd like us to cover, any suggestions of eras where we could find some hidden gems, anything like that, or just shoot us an email or a message about what you're doing. Look forward to next time. Nick, thank you very much.
Thank you very much, mate.
Cheers.